We are going to begin the evening right now. I'd like you to please stand for the Polish and American anthems sung by our dear friend, Deb Franczek. You can find the words on page 46 of your program if you want to follow along. Thank you. Deb?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła, kiedy my żyjemy. Co nam obca przemoc wzięła, szablą odbierzemy. Marsz, marsz Dąbrowski, w ziemię włoskie do Polski, za Twoim przewodem złączym się z narodem. Marsz, marsz Dąbrowski, w ziemi włoskie do Polski, za Twoim przewodem złączym się z narodem. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. It's so good to see you all out there this evening. It's been a while since we've been together. Let me say welcome to the 48th Annual National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame induction banquet. I'm David Jansen. I'm the current board chair. It's been a while since we've been together, so let me catch you up on what we've been doing since we've been together last. Since we were unable to hold our induction banquet last year, and to keep continuity, the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame Board of Directors took the opportunity to induct individuals into a category that we call Greats of the Past. Now, Greats of the Past are individuals whose accomplishments are of the same caliber as are this year's inductees. However, they played in a bygone era, hence the name of the past, and we still feel that they should be honored in our Hall of Fame. So we had contacted the families of these individuals because they're no longer with us, and they are absolutely thrilled that they've been inducted into the Hall of Fame. We'll share a little bit more about their backgrounds as the program goes on. Tonight, though, we have another great induction class with A.J. Brzezinski, J.R. Selski, Mike Kruko, and Bronco Nagurski, along with some extremely well-deserved award recipients, Joe Poznansky, Bruce Motti, and our Stan Musial Scholarship recipients. Need to say a few thank yous. First of all, I'd like to thank our sponsors and individuals who took ads out in our program book. Again, those funds help us do what we're doing this evening and throughout the year. I want to take a moment to thank the American Polish Cultural Center, and specifically Elizabeth and her staff who are serving you this evening. They're doing a great job of trying to make us very comfortable. Also, and very importantly, want to thank Michał, who's in the kitchen, who's preparing the meal that you're going to have here shortly. So thank you to those guys. Also want to thank JPI, Joseph Productions, Inc. These are the individuals who produced the videos that you're going to see this evening, as well as are doing the audio and video through us for the night. So I want to thank Sheldon Newman. I want to thank Dave and Janelle. You guys make us look really good, so thank you very much. I'd also like to thank the board of directors of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. If you can all stand for just a moment and be recognized. The reason I want to do this is every board member is a volunteer. There is no paid staff in the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. So everything that happens from tonight through our activity on social media to the display cases is all done by volunteers. So I appreciate everything that you do for the organization. And finally, I want to thank you, our guests. I mean, it is wonderful that we're seeing each other again. I see obviously a lot of old friends, but I also see some new faces. So again, really appreciate you coming out and supporting us this evening. So I'm going to take a moment now to introduce our MC for the evening. I've known John Paul Morosi for a number of years. First off, John is Polish. His paternal grandmother was born right here in Hamtramck. He stays very busy working with MLB.com and MLB Network, and if that's not enough, he's also on Fox Sports Radio, and then in his spare time, he's doing work for the NHL Network, so the man is busy. However, I did a little research on John and found out this factoid. John is a member of the Essexville-Hampton High School Hall of Fame in Essexville, Michigan. But here's the part, where he led the Garber Dukes to a 2-16 record over 2 seasons as varsity quarterback.
2-16.
So,
Those 2 wins.
I was going to say, I was hoping that was a typo, John, but I mean, really.
You got it right, 2-16.
All right. Most of all, John has been a very good friend and just a terrific ambassador of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. Your MC for the evening, John Paul Morosi.
Very kind as always. Thank you.
Yes, 2-16. Anyone who has seen me try to do anything athletically would understand. That's exactly true. AJ's seen maybe some of my attempts in the past, 2-16. Thank you all for being here. David, thanks for the great introduction and just all of your work and great communication. Thanks to the Honorable Paul Peruk, who's here as well. Thank you, Judge Jim Conrad, as well, for having me involved. Thank you to Father Kowalczyk for being here as well, to have your presence and your blessing on us. As we talked 2 years ago, my family, of course, has a long history with St. Clair Parish. My mom is the 9th of 10 kids, which many of us can identify with, being from large families. And as I shared with you, I have great recollections of many family weddings that we attended at St. Clair, with the exception of one, which was, I think in 1989, coincided with one of the Pistons playoff runs. And I said, Mom, I'm a big Pistons fan. This cousin's wedding's on the same day as a Pistons-Celtics game. And I said, I don't know if I can go. And she said, a good lesson about sacrifice and community and family and values. And so I made a big sacrifice. I moved from the front of St. Clair to the back, where my uncles and I conspired to bring in one of those little black and white TVs and watch the Pistons and Celtics in the back during the wedding. Father, forgive me. I'm sorry about that. So a quick story. Last week I was in Cooperstown at what we like to call the other Hall of Fame. This is the one. The one in Cooperstown is the other one. And I was there, really fortunate to be there covering the induction for MLB Network. And on the way back, I was in the Albany airport when I walked by one of our inductees who has his memorabilia back there, Mr. Trammell, number 3 for the Tigers. He was in the Albany airport just getting a bite to eat. He had been at the Hall of Fame, of course. I'd like to think that the fact that he was inducted here, David, finally got the Cooperstown folks on board that he belonged there too. So Tram now has his rightful place in Cooperstown. I'll have to ask Joe Posnanski to maybe relitigate that 87 MVP vote that still irks me to this day. He should have gotten it ahead of George Bell, but we'll leave that to another time. But I want to say this about Tram, because I think it embodies why we're all here and why this Hall of Fame is so special, why our Polish heritage is so special. Alan Trammell, of course, is one of us. He's a Polish-American, a great Tiger. And Tram was at that airport in Albany on the same flight as I was, flying coach, like me, back to Detroit. And he was doing that to help work for the Tigers. He filled in on the coaching staff last weekend. As many of you probably know, he's been working a lot with the Tigers infielders, their young prospects, Spencer Torkelson, Ryan Kreidler, a lot of the future of the Tigers. Tram is there working with them. Now, as we all know, Alan Trammell had an amazing career in baseball. He doesn't have to work anymore unless he wanted to. He could just live in San Diego, where he's from, and enjoy his family there. But he was on that flight, sitting next to me, oddly enough, on the plane, flying back to Detroit because the Tigers mean something to him, because baseball means something to him, because giving back means something to him. And I think for all of us here tonight, those are the same motivating reasons why we are here. Our heritage, our roots mean something to us the way they mean something to Alan Trammell. And certainly, I would say that many times we're advised in life to never meet our heroes. Well, I have met him. It's Tram. I grew up wearing number 3, playing shortstop in Essexville, as David documented, before a lack of arm strength forced to move to second base, and ultimately a lack of athleticism forced to move to the press box. But I say this because it's the dreams and the roots that motivate us, both. Being grounded and then reaching for dreams like an Olympian would, as JR has done so brilliantly in his career. These are all things that unite us and link us together. And finally, as I bring this to a close here, these introductory remarks, as David mentioned, my paternal grandmother, who's since passed away, Virginia, she was born in Hamtramck, went to St. Ladislaus, grew up right near Kniff and Joseph Campo, intersections that we all know well here in Michigan. And I just want us to reflect on, for all of us, whether it was a parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, at some point in time in our journey, someone like my grandmother and her mom came over from Poland to this great country to make a new life that all allowed us to be here. So whether your relatives are still with us, but they may be with you right here tonight, they may be with you in your memory and in your heart, please just keep them in your heart tonight and celebrate that Polish heritage that we all share. With that, I would like to welcome, and it's a special honor when, as an MC, one can introduce a friend who will then present an award to a friend. And that is George Eichhorn here, a member of our board, to present a great honor to a wonderful friend to many of us in Bruce Made. So, George, come on up.
Thank you. Hold on, George. Let me just get this.
Thank you very much, John Paul. It's a great honor for me, having been lucky enough to win the Matt Dobik Special Recognition Award, to be asked to present it tonight to a man who is so deserving of it. When it comes to sports in Michigan, there aren't too many people that have had an imprint, their fingerprints on so much in the world of sports than Bruce Made. Bruce has been spanning 6 decades, yes, over 6 decades. He's been involved with University of Michigan athletics, either as an associate director in media relations, sports information director, statistician, or spotter on the broadcast. Bruce has been there on the front line, working with Canham and Bo and Lloyd and all the names that we know in the Michigan sports history. And before that, he was a distinguished sports writer himself. He was a mentor for so many people in the business. One of them shared this with me. He says, Bruce was an innovator in the communications profession. He always looked for new ways to engage the fans, public, and the media. We were the first school at U of M to video stream a sporting event when we broadcasted a hockey game in 1998. We were the first school to have Twitter and Facebook handles for all of our sports teams. Bruce was the most respected PR person in the profession with how he worked with the media. And I can't say it any better than that. So with no further ado, I want to recognize with the Matt Dobick Special Recognition Award for 2021 in appreciation for a lifetime of achievement, service, and commitment to your community, Mr. Bruce Smoddy.
I don't know what the heck I'm doing up here in a Hall of Fame. John Morosi was 2 and 16, but at least he played. Bill Burkowski, a friend of mine, just came in. We played rec basketball, and I said he was one of the better basketball players on the team. And George says, was he a point guard? And I said, no. And Bill said, yeah, and Bruce, he was the organizer. So that's how I played, okay? I got up into the press box. I've always loved sports. I think I'm well-rounded. I like a lot of sports. I see Tom Deeth here, former unlimited hydroplane driver and a friend of mine, and I've worked with the boat racing crew before, and of course Tom is a Hall of Fame member here. I have seen so many friends of mine that are here tonight. Madeline Ward, Stuckey from the Pistons, and of course Paul Peruk. I really want to thank him, and I want to thank the National Polish Hall of Fame for honoring me today. I'm going to make this quick because really you want to hear from athletes. I got stories, but those can be told at the bar later on. I think the best story, and when John, who I've known for a number of years, and a good friend and truly a great media member, when John was talking about one of the great moments when he was able to sneak a black and white TV in the back, I remember going into school half of the time and trying and literally taping my arm up like with an ace bandage and putting a transistor radio to my ear to listen to games. And my favorite story about trying to get to see a game is the day that I was able to literally trick my mother into telling her I was sick. And of course, that was Game 7 of the World Series where Bill Mazeroski, who's in the Polish Hall of Fame, hit that home run. Of course, about the 7th inning, my mother figured it out, but at that point, she let me watch the rest of the game. So it was really good. As far as the name of this award, Matt Dobick was a really, really good friend of mine. Matt Dobick was one hell of a PR guy. He worked with the bad boys. He did everything with the Pistons. And my favorite story with that was when he got into, of course, he dressed like most of us PR guys. The media guys on TV do a much better job dressing, even though he's in scarlet and gray tonight. But I will say this. When he got in there, he said that when Coach Daly got a hold of him, Coach Daly would make sure that Matt would get dressed. He dressed Matt to the nines. He was a wonderful person to help out Matt. And losing Matt the way we did is really one of the sad points that we've had. I'm glad the Pistons renamed their media room after him, and just truly a wonderful guy. Again, I want to thank my wife, Suzette, who has put up with me for well over 40 years. She's not Polish, but everybody thinks she is, so when they talk Polish to her, she just has to shake her head and say, no, I'm married to that Polish guy over there. But I will say this, that the Polonia of America has been something that I think needs to be talked about a lot. I think heritage is very important. I think that to know what you have come from and what you've done. My parents were the first generation coming over. They never taught us Polish because they wanted us to be Americanized. And that is still in my mind a shame. I wish I did know Polish. But I will say this, and it was a surprise, so you first know, I'm not a big tattoo guy, okay? And I don't understand tattoos, but that's beside the point. So there's one day I come in and my wife tells me that one of our sons has a tattoo. The next thing I know, one of my guys at work tells me another guy has a tattoo, another one of my sons. So guess what they have? They have the Polish white eagle on their shoulder. So thank you so much, John. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. And let's make sure we can hear from the athletes. Thank you very much.
Did you need a picture? No, hold on. Go Cubs. Go. Come on. No, not that. Different Cubs. UD High. There you go. Oh, there you go. Okay. Don't worry. Do we need it? Not that other. Okay.
Yeah. That was beautifully said, Bruce. And a couple notes on that, Bruce. One thing is, the scarlet part was, this is the Polish red, right? So that was my thought. Okay, I said it had to be a red tie in honor of the occasion. And one last thing as well, I want to mention about Bruce. This is 20 years ago now. I was in college and I was wanting to get involved in sports media. And I remember it was the week of the Michigan State game, and I had sent you an email, and you were willing to talk with me I was a sophomore in college. And I've never forgotten that, Bruce. I remember where I was sitting in my dorm room calling you, and you took the time to talk with me then. Never forgotten it. You've been a great friend all these years. So, Bruce, thanks again for all you've done for me and for everybody in this entire business. Thanks so much. We would now like to have a very unique presentation today, the Excellence in Sports Award. It's a great program that we have added here at the Hall of Fame in recent years to honor a current athlete who is concurrently performing and competing at the highest levels. And this year's recipient is Sam Mikulik, a three-time U.S. Olympian. Bruce knows him well. Of course, he's a University of Michigan graduate from the class of 2014. He just was competing in the Tokyo Summer Olympics this summer. And I was honored to be able to present him with the award virtually, as he could not travel to be with us tonight. But we have that presentation. You'll see it on the video boards here in the room of our presentation of the Excellence in Sports Award to Sam Mikulik. On behalf of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame, I am so honored to present this year's Excellence in Sports Award to Sam Mikulik, the outstanding 8-time NCAA champion, 6-time all-around national champion, a great Michigan Wolverine as well. And Sam, as we celebrate this award for you, which you have so richly deserved, of course, you're a proud Polish American. What does it mean to you to celebrate through this award your Polish American heritage and the country, the United States, that you've now represented 3 times at the Olympic Games? So here it is. Here is your award, the Excellence in Sports Award to you, Sam Mikulik. Sam, congratulations.
Thank you very much. And that is a beautiful award. And really what this means to me is a whole community that I've really been able to feel backed up in for so long and just feel so welcomed. And it's an honor to represent, both the Polish descent and, representing the United States of America. And just being able to be a part of these wonderful communities has really been uplifting to get me to the positions that I've been in, where I've been able to be successful in my sports and feel the praise from all my fellow Polish descendants and American fans.
Well, Sam, as you reflect on that, and of course your parents, Steve and Tina, great gymnasts in their own right, what were the key parts of your childhood where you could really feel that Polish heritage through your father's sharing of stories, and then also as you compete around the world and you see Polish gymnasts at different competitions and the Olympic Games, what do those interactions mean to you as well?
Well, it's funny you say that. Every time I do compete internationally, I have like a connection with the Polish gymnasts, and they'll always come over and say hello, and we'll have our exchanges and hear our stories. And it's just really cool because we've never actually met before at certain points, and they just feel so welcomed and friendly and like, hey, we have something in common. Let's see what other things we have connections in. And, I just remember, having Polish sausages growing up with my family, and, just all these fond memories of traditions that other people might not have experienced that is just unique to our family.
Sam, as you think about this year's Olympics, and congratulations on making your third Olympic Games, I remember watching you qualify and all that you went through at Nationals just to get on the team. I know you were battling injuries, and there's one moment that I want to ask you about that stands out to me. You'd had a tough moment on the pommel horse right at the end of your routine. You weren't so sure even at that point if you were going to be able to qualify for the team, and yet I see you after your dismount and you're smiling. How are you able to smile in that most tense of moments? You don't know what the future is going to be. Why was there a smile on your face?
Well, like you said, it had been a tough year, and physically, I was just battling injuries, and I knew going into this whole Olympic trials process that I wasn't in the peak shape that I had been in previous Olympics. And so I was finding gratitude for being able to actually compete at this competition, to have the opportunity to try to make the Olympics. And I knew that I wasn't where I wanted to be, but I needed to give it my all. And knowing that, mistakes will happen when I'm not at my best, and being comfortable with saying, hey, I made a mistake, but guess what? That was my all. There's nothing more I could have done with all the injuries and mental health and all these different processes that were holding me back through quarantine. That finally, once I got out there and just was completed with the entire competition after the pommel horse mistake, it was just this wave of relief where I was like, all right, I literally did everything that I could, and there's nothing I can do more. So I'm just grateful for being here. And now it's whatever happens, happens. But I really hope that it's enough.
As you described, Sam, your journey in the Olympics, so it's 9 years in between your first Olympics in London to then Tokyo in 2021. How did you find yourself experiencing those Olympic Games differently from the start to the end, as you were able to embrace the pressure from a mental standpoint and meet those challenges as you did so brilliantly?
Yeah, so in 2012, in my first Olympics, I was just like a wide-eyed young kid, excited and just grateful to be there. And everything was just top-notch, like high level of excitement. And I wasn't the best guy, but I was kind of that fifth spot that made the team. But it was just such a great experience because that was my first big world stage competition. And, I did extremely well, and that propelled me to do well for the following years going into the 2016 games. But with that, the transition I had from being this grateful, appreciative, wide-eyed kid in 2012, I now had a lot of notoriety to my name, and there was a lot more pressure built with me, with expectations from external factors and, the crowds, and everyone had high expectations for me. And so I really took that a little too seriously, and I learned a lot from my mistakes that I made in 2016 of how much to put on your plate and how to deal with that. And then so going into 2021, it was like, all right, let's find that authentic self that I can be proud of, that I can be who I want to be instead of who other people want me to be. And these were just the different mindsets that have transitioned through me throughout the sport. And I'm just super, super grateful to be able to have gone out on a high note, a positive note, and, look back and say all of these experiences haven't just been for gymnastics. It's been about building the character of Sam Mikulak as well. And that's going to transition into whatever happens next now that I'm retired and looking for the future.
Well, Sam, one of the reasons why I respect you so much is that you have been so authentic and candid about your journey in mental health and being a resource for your fellow athletes. So no matter where they're from and no matter what sport they're competing in, maybe can you speak to that evolution for you, Sam, and maybe how grateful you are that you are in a position now to help others?
Yeah, I know there was a time where I was very naive and didn't want to address, mental health, emotional health, personal health. I always just did what I thought was the best. And that was just a very strict diet, a strict routine, and prioritizing athletics and gymnastics over my actual self. And being able to, and I only identified as a gymnast rather than as Sam Mikulak who does gymnastics. And so once I started really breaking down the core values of who I am and not being an athlete, is when I finally was like, wow, I really wish I had made this transition a long time ago. And so that's helped me to speak out and help other athletes that might have felt like in the same position I felt until I had my great awakening. And through that, I've been hearing very receptive and hearing great stories from so many athletes, many different countries, many different sports, just saying how much they appreciate my sharing of my story and how they've changed their lives because of what I've shared.
Sam, this is so beautifully said. And of course, your major at the University of Michigan was psychology. And I wonder, as you reflect back on that journey now, your academic background, how does that open up so many fascinating possibilities for you now in the future?
Well, it's so weird because I started in kinesiology at Michigan, and I ended up transitioning to psychology just because it seemed more what I wanted to do because it was fun. But I never thought I would have a career in psychology once I actually started taking the classes. I was just like, you know what? I'm here for gymnastics. I want to just do, a subject that I'm very passionate about, not something that I actually want to pursue as a future job. But then as I have been trying to figure out what to do after gymnastics and being more self-aware, I started realizing, well, shouldn't you do what you love? And I shouldn't be going for a job just because it pays well or because I think this is what I should do. I should listen to what past Sam was saying, doing it because I loved it, and now I'm able to reconnect with that old Sam's perception and say, yeah, I think this is the future I actually wanted to go down. I just lost sight of that for a while, and now I've reinvigorated this whole path that I think the past me would have really appreciated.
It's so great. And I know that I speak for all of us when I say that we can't wait to see all the great things that you'll achieve here going forward. And one final question, going back to the beginning, your parents, Steve and Tina, both gymnasts themselves, as we mentioned earlier. How do you describe their guidance through your young years of sports, growing up in California, and how, as you mentioned to me earlier, growing through different sports allowed you to choose the one that really spoke to your heart the most?
Yeah, so I had wonderful parents. They never put any pressures on me to go one way or the other. I think they understood that every child has their own path that they need to find, and they can't put any pressures or else it's going to be biased in one way or the other, and it won't be authentic. So I did soccer, baseball, gymnastics, hockey, basketball, and through process of my own elimination, I was able to find the true passions that I felt into gymnastics and slowly just drop sport after sport. And I really think that's what helped me be as successful as I am today, is because of the path that my parents let me choose for myself.
Sam Mikulak, three-time Olympian, six-time all-around world or all-around national champion there for USA Gymnastics, eight-time NCAA champion, and now the Excellence in Sports Award winner via the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. Sam, we are so thrilled to present this to you, and also we can't wait to see all the great things you'll do in this next exciting chapter of your life and in your career. Sam, congratulations from all of us, and we can't wait to meet you in person here in the future as well. Congratulations again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it too. You have a wonderful day as well, and thank you everyone for supporting, and can't wait for the future.
There you go. Go blue indeed. And go green too, yes. Both 2-0, right? Our thanks again to Sam for his time. And again, we're all excited to meet him in the future and can't wait to see the great things that he'll do in the next chapter of his life. And now we welcome here Reverend Father Andrew Kowalczyk for tonight's benediction. And thanks again, Father, for being here tonight. Thank you.
Dobry wieczór, good evening. It's great to be together again on such a joyous occasion when we honor the outstanding athletes being inducted into the Polish Hall of Fame class of 2021. So let us rejoice in thanksgiving for the fellowship we share tonight. Thank the Lord for the blessings in our lives and pray for those facing hardships. Tonight we honor posthumously Bronko Nagurski, outstanding football player at both college and pro level. Bronko, a man of stature, the ever-ready bunny football, never running out of energy on and off the field. When he hung up his football cleats, he picked up wrestling boots, went on to win few championships title. Faster than a spinning bullet, not a Superman, but our second inductee, three-time Olympian speed skater J.R. Selski. Like Bronco, he has a claim to fame. He was the first person to break 40 seconds barrier in a 500-meter race. That's fast, really fast. And two storied baseball players complete tonight's roster. World Series champ catcher A.J. Pierzynski and National League All-Star pitcher Mike Krukov, each having great success at their position on the field. But beyond their skill, we thank them for being role models of safety for our baseball athletes in today's pandemic. Mike wearing a glove, and AJ not only glove, but also a face mask too. Lord, bless the board of directors who brought us back together this year to celebrate our Polish heritage. Bless all who are here tonight, the athletes, patrons, staff, and cooks. Bless our city, country, and world with peace and goodwill. Oh yes, Lord, and if I could, what is it that you say? Ask and you shall receive. Please, Lord, give us hope that Jared Gove will have someone to receive his passes this year. And the rest of our teams here in Detroit, Lord, do your best. We ask all of this in your name. Can I get amen? Amen. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Good night. Smacznego.
Okay, as you're eating, we're going to take care of a little business, so keep doing what you're doing. For those of you who bought raffle tickets this evening, the cards, we did terrific. We sold out. So Steve Grouse is going to pull the winner with that. Then he's going to talk about the silent auction, and then we're going to do a little more business. So, first one here.
All right, AJ is going to draw the first card, and the winner gets the choice. So, well, either the booze basket or the Stan Musial signed Mitchell Ness jersey.
Do I read it or you read it? I'll read it. Oh, I got it.
All right, it's from the Red Wing deck.
You didn't tell me you had it.
Oh, I didn't know your wife bought one. You're
Tell
disqualified.
me.
It is the three of clubs. All right. Oh, you're lucky, just like your father is. Billy, which one do you want? Do you want the Mitchell Ness jersey or the booze? You take the booze? You are like your father. All right. Yeah, next one. Now this is for the Stan Musial signed jersey. It's the Red Wing deck again. Sorry, I guess I should have shook him up a little bit better. It is the five of diamonds. Brods, you won? Oh, sorry, you're a friend of mine, you can't win. All right, just want to let you know the auction will be ending, and there's some good bids out there. The auction's going to be ending in 10 minutes, so get up there, get some last-minute bids in. Thank you again for your support at the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. Have a great night.
I just wanted to recognize some of our guests that are here today. National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame inductees Tom Deef, Tom Nowatzki, Brian Smolinski, and Greg Landry. Welcome back, all of you. Good to see you. Craig Wolanin, National Hockey League Stanley Cup champion. Welcome, Craig. Doug Trozak, played for the University of Michigan and the Green Bay Packers. Welcome, Doug. Kellen Winslow, NFL Hall of Famer, San Diego Charger. Kellen, good to see you. Herb Haywood, played for MSU, and he now is Madonna's head football coach. Welcome. Dr. Grandillo, president of Madonna University. Doctor. Scott Kennel, the athletic director, and Stacy Latney, the track and field coach. Welcome. Daryl Onderek, in charge of community relations and past president of the American Polish Century, representing Arnold Beller, the president. Welcome, Daryl. Thank you. And to everybody else, those that I did not mention, thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, could I have your attention, please? Ladies and gentlemen, a big part of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame is the Stan Musial Scholarship Program and the support that this organization has for young people pursuing the very same dreams that we're honoring tonight. So for the presentation of this year's award recipients, we welcome now the chairperson of the Scholarship Committee, Madeline Ward.
Good evening. I'm a little short, so I have to pull this down. Tonight we are honored to be able to recognize those that received scholarships in 2020 and 2021. We didn't have the banquet last year, but we certainly kept up the tradition of issuing 6 Stan Musial scholarships. I'm going to direct your attention to pages 3 through 6 in the program when you have a chance later tonight to read about the backgrounds of our awardees and the amazing accomplishments that they've already achieved as high school students. In 2020, we gave 6 scholarships out, and the first one went to Isabel Hugh from South Forsyth High School in Cumming, Georgia. She is currently attending Cornell University in her 2nd year. We are fortunate tonight to have Isabel's aunt and uncle here, Amy and Dan Ewald Jr. If you would just give us a wave, we'd appreciate it. We know how proud you are of Isabel. The second one went to Matthew Schofield from Hilton High School in Rochester, New York. Matthew is in his sophomore year at Ithaca College. Anya Hedrick from Northeast High School in Reeves Junction, Michigan, is our third recipient from 2020. Anya is in her 2nd year at Michigan State University. Go Green. Our fourth went to William Koznowski III. He's a graduate of Orchard Lake St. Mary's Prep and is in his 2nd year at Michigan State University. 2 in a row for MSU. Anya Pelshaw is from Sterling Heights, Michigan, and is a graduate of Bishop Foley High School. She is in her 2nd year at John Carroll University. Henry Edstrom from Kenwood Academy High School in Chicago, Illinois, is in his 2nd year at Mississippi State University. In 2021, our first recipient was Eve Marie Giancarlo. She's from Sweet Home High School in Amherst, New York. She is now in her 1st year at Amherst College. Jessica Anna Malecki is from James B. Conant High School in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. Jessica is attending her 1st year at Purdue University. William F. O'Shea IV is from Father Judge High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. William is attending Pennsylvania State University. Grace Ozog from Stevenson High School in Livonia, Michigan, is a freshman at the University of Michigan. We're honored tonight to have Grace's grandmother and grandfather here, and that is Joanne and Wallace Ozog. Can you give us a wave? I know many people here know the Ozogs, yes. Congratulations to you. We share your pride and grace. Helena Slapiniak is from Villa Maria Academy High School in Malvern, Pennsylvania. Helena is attending Temple University. Matthew Walker is from St. Mary's Prep in Orchard Lake, Michigan. Matthew is attending the University of Notre Dame. We're very proud of all the recipients. Normally they're here and you get to see some of their faces and can congratulate them in person, but I hope you'll take a minute to look at their bios and look at the many accomplishments that they've achieved. Thank you, and continued success to all these young people.
Good evening again. As we enjoy our dessert, let's pause for a moment and give a huge round of applause for our incredible servers here at the American Polish Cultural Center for doing a great job today. And as you continue enjoying dessert, we will now move to the very special part of our program this evening, beginning with honoring the greats of the past. And as David had mentioned earlier today, the Hall took a very important step in the last year to revisit some of the greats that we have seen of Polish American heritage in the past and revisit their careers and honor them here tonight. All 5 of our honorees have sadly passed away, but we want to make sure that we recognize their careers and celebrate their achievements here tonight. So with that, we'll begin the presentation. You'll see it on the screens behind me as I read their biographies. Let's begin with Francis Sobczak-Klubczewski. Klubczewski was a 4-time national AAU champion in shot put and a 2-time indoor champion in 1948 and 1951. She was the national champion in the discus throw 7 times. In 1951, Klubczewski won the bronze medal in discus at the Pan Am Games. After competing, Klubczewski was named manager of the U.S. track team at the 1959 Pan Am Games, where the U.S. women won gold in all but 2 events. In 1960, she managed the U.S. track team at the Rome Olympic Games. Once again, Francis Sobczak-Klubczewski. Our next honoree, Dominik Olejniczak. Olejniczak served as a member of the board of directors of the Green Bay Packers from 1950 through 1989, including 24 years as president from 1958 through 1982, the longest tenure of any Packers president. A soft-spoken consensus builder, he headed the search committee that landed Vince Lombardi as their head coach in 1959, and continued to oversee the organization as the Packers won 5 NFL championships and 2 Super Bowls in the 1960s. Someday the Lions will get on the scoreboard there as well. Olejniczak was inducted into the Green Bay Packers Hall of Fame in 1979. Again, Dominik Olejniczak. Next, Emil Sitko. Sitko enrolled at Notre Dame as a 23-year-old freshman in 1946 after serving our country in the U.S. military during World War II. He was a starter on the football team, 3 years at halfback and 1 at fullback. In those 4 years, the Irish went 36-0-2. He led his team in rushing all 4 years, and his career average was 6.1 yards per carry. In 1949, he also led the team in kickoff returns, averaging 22 yards. He was a consensus All-America in 1948, a unanimous All-America in 1949. Sitko was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1984. Emil Sitko. Next, Frank Taberski. Born in 1889, Taberski began shooting pool at the age of 13, and by age 16 was already the Central New York champion. He turned pro in 1915 at the age of 26, and in 1916 he became world champion by defeating Johnny Layton. Nicknamed the Gray Fox, he retained his world title 10 challenge matches in a row. Taberski retired in 1918, but returned to billiards in 1925 and regained the world title. He is ranked 7th by Billiards Digest among the 50 greatest players of the century. In 1975, Taberski was inducted into the Billiards Congress of America Hall of Fame. Frank Taberski. And finally, among our greats of the past, Connie Wisniewski. Wisniewski was a starting pitcher and outfielder in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League from 1944 through 1952. Considered by many historians as the best underhand pitcher of her era, she posted a 107-48 career record to become one of only 7 pitchers to collect 100 or more victories in All-American Girls Professional Baseball League history. Wisniewski also holds the league's all-time record for best winning percentage and the best single-season record for innings pitched. Get this, 391 innings pitched in a single season. Among her career highlights, she was named Player of the Year in 1945, was a 4-time All-Star, and played on 2 championship teams with 8 playoff appearances. Once again, Connie Wisniewski. And let's hear it once more for all of our greats of the past. All right, and now we turn our attention to a very special award for many reasons, one of which we've got the great gentleman that we're honoring here with us tonight and his wonderful wife Margot as well. So we'll continue on with the Tony Kubek Award. I'm very honored to be here for many reasons tonight, but this next award is a very special one, and it's because certainly it's the profession that our honoree and I share, and also we're honoring a great man and now a great legacy as part here of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. As with the inaugural recipient, our 2021 honoree is a legend in our field, revered by colleagues and admired by the millions who enjoy his work. As we begin this presentation, let's first go back to the origin of this award and its namesake. Tony Kubek, now 85 years of age, is a 4-time All-Star and 3-time World Series champion with the New York Yankees. He later spent 24 years as an NBC broadcaster, teaming with icons like Kirk Gowdy, Joe Garagiola, and Bob Costas. Kubek worked 11 World Series and received the highest honor in baseball broadcasting, the Ford C. Frick Award, in 2009. 2 years ago, the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame inaugurated the Tony Kubek Media Award with the selection of Adrian Wojnarowski as the first recipient. I smile whenever I think of that great video presentation that we had back then, the image of Adrian accepting the award from Tony Kubek. Tony was seated in his Wisconsin living room, and Tony Kubek was wearing the great Polska baseball t-shirt. I still remember that. I have to get one of those for myself and wear it with great pride. Polska baseball was beautiful. And of course, Adrian wanted to be here. Woj, as we all know him, of course, in the profession. Woj wanted to be here, but as we recall, just by happenstance, our banquet that year was on the same night as the NBA draft. And if we were going to have Woj here to accept the award, we basically would have had to move the entire draft to Troy, Michigan, because that's like asking Santa if he can attend a banquet on Christmas Eve. You can't do that on the night of the draft for Woj. So it was a great moment, and I love that T-shirt and that great exchange of the trophy in Tony's living room. I'm fortunate to say this year's recipient has been a dear friend of mine for many, many years. I also confess to experiencing a very particular brand of anxiety that anybody in my profession of sports writing experiences upon walking into a press box and noticing that this gentleman was also in that press box, because you have that fear of saying, could I write like one paragraph that will be a tenth as good as the magnum opus that's going to flow onto his screen as the game is going on, and of course afterward. 5 different organizations have named him National Sports Writer of the Year. He is a 2-time Emmy Award winner as part of NBC's digital coverage of the Olympic Games. He is the author of 5 outstanding books, most recently The Baseball 100, which I was lucky enough to get from him in Dyersville, Iowa last month as we both enjoyed the Field of Dreams game. Today he's a senior writer with The Athletic. He's one of the greats of our profession. and it is my distinct honor to present to you the winner of the 2021 Tony Kubek Media Award, my friend Joe Poznansky.
So, Joe, on behalf of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame, we are thrilled that you are this year's recipient of the Tony Kubek Media Award.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for those kind words. I can't tell you how honored I am to be here, to be a part of this, to be here on AJ and JR's night, to be a part of that, with all the greats who have been here and who have won this award. But I have to tell you, I'm just honored to be wearing a suit. And that's true. When my parents were they both grew up in Poland, and they moved to the United States just a couple of years before I was born. And my father worked his life in a factory. And for him, for my mother, what success meant was that you wore a suit to work. And so that was always my goal and my dream in life, was not to have any specific kind of job, but have a job that I could wear a suit to work. And so I went to college to become an accountant. Thank you. It just seemed like a profession. I could wear a suit. It was a thing. And it was I remember the moment, this is absolutely true. I remember the moment that I knew I was not going to become an accountant. I used to take the city bus to school and back to college. I lived at home, and I used to take the city bus. And I was taking the city bus home from college, and we went by this business park. And I remember just looking out the window and seeing all of these people, and they all did. They all had suits on, and they were carrying satchels, and they were talking about balance sheets or whatever accountants talk about. And I just remember, and I was looking at them, and I just thought to myself, you know what? That is never going to be me. That is never going to be me out there wearing that suit, doing that work. And coincidentally, that was the day I failed out of accounting. So it worked out really well. It worked out perfectly. And I honestly had no idea what to do. No clue what to do with my life. And I went home, and the one thing that I owned, my mother had given me when I was a couple of years younger. She had given me a typewriter, an electric typewriter. And it's funny, I tell this story all the time at colleges and high schools, and they have no idea what a typewriter is. They've never heard of it. And I always tell them it was a great device. It was like a computer and a printer all in one. So I typed letters to anybody I could think of in a profession that seemed interesting to me. I wrote to Bob Costas. I wrote to people who ran zoos. I really didn't know anything. And one of the people I wrote to was the sports editor of the paper where I was living at the time, in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I wrote to him and said, look, I don't know how to write. I don't know anything, but I would love for your advice on what I can do. And he wrote back, amazingly, and said, we sometimes hire kids like you. We'll pay them $15-20. You go to a high school game, write about a high school game, we were called stringers, and write about a high school game. And I went to that first high school game, and I just thought, this is what I was meant to do. This is it. I found it. The only problem is I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no earthly clue what I'm doing. And this is not a made up thing. This is 100% true. The very first day I ever went into the office, they said to me, hey, we've got a little assignment for you. Magic Johnson is coming to Charlotte to sign autographs at a local mall store. It was called Belk. At Belk. Magic Johnson is coming to Belk. Go ahead. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? And they're like, just write a note about that. So we write a note. And I said, okay, and I wrote Magic Johnson is coming to Belt, and I handed it to the editor. I'm like, and this is true, and he was like, what are you doing? I'm like, you said to write a note. He's like, no, a note I can put in the paper, something. And okay, and so how do I do that? Just call the store, find out the information, and I called the store and passed around and finally found somebody, and they said, yes, Magic Johnson is coming at 1 o'clock. And I said, great, this is awesome. And I said, hey, Magic Johnson's coming at 1 o'clock, like I had broken Watergate. And they said, oh, awesome, just write something about it now. And I wrote it, Magic Johnson, 3-time MVP, is coming to Charlotte. He's going to be here at 1 o'clock today. And this is going to be great. Okay. 6 a.m. the next morning, my editor calls the house. So I'm completely new. And my mother, I was at home, knocks on my door and says, somebody's on the phone for you at 6 a.m. And I'm like, hello? And he's like, Joe, hi, I'm the sports editor. I'd never met him. The sports editor of the paper. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I have a question for you about the story you wrote today. And I thought this was normal. I thought, yeah, this is what newspapers do. They follow up when you've written something, just make sure it's all okay, yeah. And I said, yeah, and he goes, where did you get that information? And I said, I called the store. He's like, you did? You called the store? And I said, yes. And they said, what did they tell you? Exactly what did they tell you? I said, they told me Magic Johnson is coming at 1 o'clock. And he said 2 words that haunt me to this day. He said, what day? What day? It was a good question. That was a good follow-up question I could have asked at the time. And I said, yeah, I didn't ask that. So he said, but you wrote today on here. How did that come about? I'm like, well, I just kind of assumed. He's like, yeah, you did. You kind of assumed that, didn't you? I'm like, yeah. So he told me, well, here's what I need you to do. I need you to come to Belk this morning and meet with the store, because Belk also happened to be the biggest advertiser at the paper, and maybe the paper didn't want people just coming out looking for Magic Johnson when he wasn't going to be there. So I go out to the store, and I'm so embarrassed. I'm just so humiliated. And I talked to the sports editor, and I said, I can't believe this. This is my first day. I've already got people driving around from miles around to find Magic Johnson in a department store. And he goes, it's okay. We all make mistakes. And I said, is there anything I can do? And he said, actually there is. Here's what I want you to do. At 1 o'clock today, I want you to stand outside of Belk. And I want you to stop people and say, are you here to see Magic Johnson? And then they will say yes. And I will say, he's not here. I'm the one that wrote that in the paper. It's my fault. And I did it. That's exactly what I did. And how am I standing here? Like, how did this happen? It's like, I don't understand it at all. But, it's just been an unbelievable, just one lucky break after another for me in my life. And I've gotten to do everything. I mean, as is John Paul, I've been all over the world. I've covered 10 Olympics. I've been to World Series and Super Bowls and Masters and Wimbledons and U.S. Opens and Stanley Cup Finals, and it's ridiculous. I've just lived this ridiculous life. But I want to share with you, before we go, the greatest sporting event I ever saw, because I think it sort of represents how lucky my life has been. So the greatest sporting event I've ever saw, and I was there for Derek Jeter's home run after 9/11, for the Super Bowl that ended, at the 1-yard line, and I could list on and on. But the greatest sporting event I ever saw, I actually did not understand the rules of the event I was watching. It was in 2000 at the Sydney Olympics at something called Greco-Roman wrestling. It was the night that the United States was playing in the baseball gold medal final. And that's what I was supposed to do. But I'd already written about them, and baseball and the Olympics, it's like I write so much baseball already. I want to write something I don't know. And that night, there was a Russian wrestler named Alexander Karelin, who was wrestling for his 4th gold medal. Alexander Karelin had not given up a single point in Greco-Roman wrestling in the Olympics. I don't know what that means exactly, but it sounded really impressive to me. Plus, he was like, there were stories about him that he would train by like carrying refrigerators upstairs. Like that was how he would train. And I thought, oh, this is pretty good. We got this Russian wrestler who trains with refrigerators and is, being honored that night. The president of the IOC was there that night. So it was going to be this very special event. So I went. It was packed, completely packed. There were scalpers for Greco-Roman wrestling. And I thought this was amazing. I didn't even know who he was wrestling. I didn't care. I was there to write about the great Alexander Karelin. And it turned out he was wrestling an American, which I thought, well, that's interesting. Okay, he's got an American, didn't know his name. And an event happens, and it was electric, absolutely electric. And when you're a sports writer, as John Paul can tell you, you're always like, you just want one thing. You just want one hook to write about, one cool angle that you saw, one great quote, something to build a story around. And I'm there, and I'm like, this is an amazing scene. I mean, it's to the rafters with people screaming, yelling for Alexander Karelin. This is going to be an amazing night. And they start wrestling. I don't follow what they're doing. They're sort of holding each other, it seems like. And then all of a sudden, I hear in the crowd this gasp throughout the crowd. I didn't see anything. To me, they were just kind of still grappling. And I looked up at the scoreboard, and the American had a point. And it was the first point that Alexander Karelin had given up. And the crowd was, because they knew what was going on, they were just stunned. And I was like, well, maybe something here is happening. I don't know what's going on here. And then they keep wrestling, and I'm looking at the clock, and the clock is ticking down. But I don't even know if that's the end. Like, are there quarters in wrestling? Like, I don't. But I see the clock ticking down, and Karelin has no points, and the American has 1 point. And it just keeps going and going, and then finally, at the end, Karelin kind of bows his head and holds out his hand in defeat. And the crowd is going crazy. And I'm like, what did I just watch? What happened here? And I'm just blown away. I think I just saw the greatest upset in the history of the Olympics. And I don't even know how it happened. We go back to the press room. It's going to be a press conference. The American goes up. I find out by now his name is Rulon Gardner. And Rulon Gardner is up on the little stage for the press conference, and he turns to the guy next to him, and he says, hey, this is pretty cool. I've never had a press conference before. I thought, oh boy, this is really, not only do I have just an amazing story, this guy winning, but look, this guy's never even had a press conference. And he starts talking, and it's the most unbelievable thing I've ever heard in my entire life. He starts saying, hey, did you think you had a chance against Karelin? And he goes, back home in Wyoming, I used to wrestle cows. And Karelin's tough, but he's no Betsy. I mean, he's no cow. And I thought, what in the world is happening here? I just saw the greatest upset in the history of the Olympics, and it's a guy who wrestles cows. I'm like, what? Oh, so my mind is spinning. I got to get back to right. I'm like, I've got too much. And I start walking back, and we run into a woman, and the woman says, oh, hi, I'm Rulon Gardner's mother. Well, I ran into his mother, just ran into her. Oh, Miss Gardner, congratulations, what an unbelievable event. Yes. Well, when did you know that Rulon was special? I'll tell you when I knew. When Rulon Gardner was 8 years old, he could carry 2 milk buckets at the same time. And you can't do that at 8. I mean, that's heavy. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, the guy wrestles cows and he's carrying milk buckets, and what is happening? And I race back to my computer, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where is this guy from? I don't have any idea, and it's Afton, Wyoming. What is that? And so I called the Afton, Wyoming radio station to find out a little something about the town so I could get a little something. And I call, and the phone rings, and the guy answers, but he doesn't say hello. He just puts the phone down because it was the radio station. He was on the air. And I hear him say, well, we're going to have to dispense with the birthdays today because something really special has happened here. Birthdays? They read the birthdays in Afton, Wyoming every day. The guy with the cows and the milk, and they're reading the birthdays, and my head is going to explode, okay? This never happens. John can tell you this never happens. You never get one thing this good. Meanwhile, I'm just like, there's too much. I have too much. I don't know what to do. And I sit down to start writing, and this is the honest truth. A man walks up to me and says, excuse me, do you know where the Gardner party is? And I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I think they might have just gone out to eat. And he goes, oh, because I'm Rulan's father. Just walked up to me. And I said, oh my gosh, Mr. Gardner, congratulations. What an unbelievable thing. This is so great. And he goes, yeah. I didn't think we were going to make it out here for this. And I'm like, don't ask him, don't. I said, why did you think you were not going to make it out here, Mr. Gardner? Well, you know, it's expensive to come all the way out to Australia from Wyoming. I basically had to go to the Wyoming State Fair and sell my special stew in order to raise the money to get out. There was a stew. I did not need that stew. I did not need that stew. And then he says, you know, when I was in Korea, and I said, just get away from me. Just get. And I wrote that story. And I remember it took me forever because I couldn't process it all. It was all so great. And I remember going, as I was leaving, I was taking the bus back to where I was staying. And I started thinking to myself, what an unbelievable life I've gotten to lead. My parents came from Poland. My dad worked in a factory. I had no sense whatsoever. Nobody ever told me I could write. I never had any belief. And here I am in Sydney, Australia, and I just saw the single greatest sporting event of my entire life, completely out of nowhere, complete surprise. And I just almost broke down in tears thinking how amazing my life has been. So this night, this place is so special. I cannot thank all of you enough. I cannot thank the Hall of Fame enough for giving me this. I will tell you that Tony Kubek called me, and that was one of the thrills of my life, talking to Tony Kubek about the old Yankees and everything. This is just such a special event. Thank you so much.
Wow, Joe, that was incredible. And I think we all got a live experience of why we're talking about one of the most gifted storytellers of our time. So again, Joe Posnanski. It's now my honor to begin the announcements of our 4 new Hall of Famers at the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. We'll begin here with our first honoree. In late 1999, Sports Illustrated named him as the greatest 20th century athlete from the state of Minnesota, ahead of Dave Winfield and Kevin McHale. When you're a member of the Pro Football and College Football Halls of Fame, and have a major college football award named after you, it's easy to understand why. He was a two-way superstar who played a crucial role in the first modern playoff game in NFL history. Here is Ken Cal with more on our next honoree.
Born in Rainy River, Ontario in 1908, Bronco Nagurski moved with his family to International Falls, Minnesota at age 5. Working on his parents' farm, sawmill, and nearby timbering operations, Bronco grew to a powerfully muscular lad of 6'2" and 230 pounds, a virtual behemoth by the standards of the day. He was discovered inadvertently by University of Minnesota coach Clarence Spears. Legend has it that while recruiting another player, Spears stopped by the side of the road where Bronco was plowing to ask directions. When Bronco lifted his plow to point, he was signed on the spot. Nagurski became a standout player at Minnesota from 1927 through 1929. He was a consensus All-American at both fullback and defensive tackle in 1929, and to this day, the only player ever awarded All-American honors at two positions in the same season. Following his graduation, Nagurski turned professional, signing with the George Halas-led Chicago Bears in 1930. For a total of 9 seasons, Nagurski led the Bears both offensively and defensively, resulting in several division titles and 3 NFL championships. His size 19.5 championship ring is said to be the largest ever issued. Playing both running back and defensive tackle most of his career, Bronco rarely left the field. Occasionally, following an injury, he would be given a rest by being allowed to play offensive tackle. He was selected first-team All-Pro 4 times and second-team All-Pro 3 times. Following his retirement from football, Nagurski took up professional wrestling, where he became a major box office draw while winning more than a dozen major championships, including the World Wrestling Association title with his defeat of Lou Thesz in 1939. After retiring from pro wrestling in 1960, Nagurski returned to International Falls to live a quiet life with his childhood sweetheart Eileen Kane, whom he had married in 1936. Inducted into the inaugural class of the College Football Hall of Fame in 1951, Nagurski was also inducted into the inaugural class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1963. In 1993, the Football Writers Association of America created the Bronco Nagurski Trophy, awarded annually to the best defensive player in college football. In 2003, Bronco was honored on a U.S. postage stamp as one of the 4 legends of early professional football. This past year, Nagurski was named by USA Today as the 50th greatest NFL player of all time. The National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame congratulates Bronco Nagurski on his 2021 induction.
I did notice Mr. Winslow nodding as the mention came of resting as an offensive tackle. That's a pretty interesting phrasing. That's your rest to play tackle. What an amazing career. I do want to note a couple things here. You may be asking the natural question of course, Pro Football Hall of Famer, College Football Hall of Famer, and now today Polish American Hall of Fame. Sometimes we go the opposite direction, as we talked about with Alan Trammell. But the interesting thing here is we can actually thank ancestral research here, because for a while the Nagurski family had been under the impression and done research and believed that their heritage was Ukrainian, but then via the ancestry DNA research they came to find out that they are in fact Polish, and recognized this and embraced this award wholeheartedly, and in fact to formally accept the award, since Bronco sadly passed away in 1990, we have a video acceptance from his son, Tony. Let's enjoy.
Thank you for honoring my father with this award. My father was very humble and loved living in the small town of International Falls because he was not in the limelight. He made very few public appearances, but would often be seen in front of the post office or on Main Street, talking with friends about fishing, hunting, or the high school sports teams. When I was young, we had a book at home titled The Chicago Bears that was written by Howard Roberts in 1947. It had a whole chapter, 10 pages, about Bronco. That was the first time I realized that he was more than just Dad. This was really driven home to me when I was in Canton, Ohio, with my parents in 1963. And Bronco became a charter member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was surrounded by the legends of football, and that was very impressive. Bronco was proud of his Polish heritage, and he would be very honored to join his good friend from the Bears, Bill Osmanski, his old wrestling nemesis, Killer Kowalski, and all the rest of the members of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. This year, there is a real Chicago connection with Bronco as a Bear, Mike Krukow from the Cubs, and AJ representing the White Sox. I was lucky enough to be living in Chicago to witness both Mike and AJ's great careers. I couldn't find a Chicago connection to J.R. Selski, but I am sure that he passed through O'Hare sometime in his long speed skating career. I would like to thank those who have worked so hard to develop this museum and Hall of Fame, and all of the wonderful fans like you who support it. I am honored to accept this special award for Bronco, and it will proudly be displayed in the Bronco Nagurski Museum in International Falls, Minnesota. Thank you.
What a great and gracious speech from Tony, and as I'm sure Bruce Mate would appreciate, I did want to note Aiden Hutchinson is on the watch list for the Nagurski Trophy, so that's to bring a current update there on the University of Michigan. Our next honoree, at 31 years old, is our youngest that we're honoring tonight, but already with a lifetime of international achievement in the sport of speed skating. He is a 3-time Olympic medalist, a 3-time senior world champion, a 2-time junior world champion, and a past world record holder in the 500 meters. And as we're about to learn, he's shown profound courage in the face of adversity, while drawing inspiration from the 2 cultural traditions that make him the extraordinary person he is today. Here is Ken Cal.
Born in Monterey, California, John Robert Selski began skating at the age of 3 after receiving a pair of play school roller skates as a gift from his parents. JR immediately fell in love with his new skates and quickly advanced to competitive inline skating. By age 6, JR began competing in national competitions and started winning regularly by age 8. By age 12, Selski, who had moved with his family to Federal Way, Washington, was already a national champion inline skater when he was inspired to make the switch to short track speed skating. His inspiration came after watching Apollo Ono, 8 years his senior, win the gold medal at the 2002 Winter Olympics. With the support of his parents, Selski moved back to California at age 14 and began a training program that would eventually make him a national champion speed skater. After missing the minimum age requirement for the 2006 Olympics by just 17 days, Selski stepped away from skating for a short time. He returned to the sport during his junior year in high school and qualified for Team USA and focused on international competition. Competing internationally, Selski won both the 500-meter individual and 5,000-meter relay events in the 2009 World Junior Championships, establishing multiple World Junior records. Later that year, he excelled in the 2009 World Championships in Vienna, where he won 2 gold and 1 silver medal.
So now, J.R. Selski's pulling away from the pack. He is in first place. This guy is so incredibly impressive. I can't even explain to you. J.R. Selski, 1 lap to go. And it looks like J.R. Selski is going to win this 3,000 meter. This is his first World Championships, and he wins the 3,000 meter. What an amazing race by J.R. Selski to pull this race, get lap on the field, and win. What an incredible performance by J.R. Selski.
By the age of 19, JR was a world-class short track skater and primed for the 2010 Olympics. However, just prior to the event, at the U.S. Short Track Speed Skating Olympic Trials held in Marquette, Michigan, he suffered a gruesome injury when he fell during a race and his right skate blade gashed his left thigh all the way to his femur bone. The injury required emergency surgery, 60 stitches, and months of rehabilitation. Despite this, he was able to compete at the Vancouver Olympics, held just 5 months after the injury, where he won bronze medals in the 1,500 meter and the 5,000 meter relay.
Unbelievable. Apollo Antonono with the silver. J.R. Selski with the bronze. What a race.
Following the 2010 Olympics, Selski continued to skate competitively for 8 more years, winning medals in the 2010 and 2014 World Championships as well as a silver medal in the 2014 Olympics. He competed in his third and final Olympic Games in 2018. Overall, Selski won 3 Olympic medals and numerous gold, silver, and bronze medals competing at the World Cup and Junior Championships until he retired from competition in 2019. In 2012, Selski became the first person to skate under the 40-second barrier in the 500-meter event with a time of 39.937 seconds, establishing a world record for this distance that remained unbroken until February 2018.
Being in the third from the inside, Gord taking advantage of his size to muscling J.R. Selski to get to the front early in this race.
Remember that time was 43.0 That's the current world record holder. He is in first place. But look at J.R. Selski makes a big move. Miranda slides into second position. And it's J.R. Selski of the United States who takes gold. Hamlin will pick up the silver, and that is a world record for J.R. Selski, the first man in the history of short track speed skating over 500 meters to go under 40 seconds.
Proud of his Polish and Filipino heritage, Selski has been photographed often, displaying on his chest the large tattoo of a Polish eagle surrounded by the sun and star pattern of the Philippine flag, proudly showing both sides of his ethnic heritage by merging together in one tattoo the emblems of both his ancestral homelands. With that same pride, the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame congratulates J.R. Selski on his 2021 induction.
So JR, on behalf of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame, welcome as our newest inductee.
Thank you so much. Wow. I'm incredibly honored to be here tonight. Witam wszystkich tu zgromadzonych. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too bad. I practiced that for quite a while. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame for having me and honor me tonight, especially after such a whirlwind of a year last year, organizing this event and having us all come together tonight to celebrate. Thank you for your hard work and for having my father and I here. And then next of all, to my fellow inductees, AJ, Bronco, and Mike, and then the award recipients, so Joe, Bruce, Sam, and all the greats of the past. I'm honored to share the stage with such a dedicated and impactful group of individuals, so congratulations. I know what some of you might be thinking, so I just want to clear the air here while I have the chance, but yes, in fact, I am Polish. In case any of you were wondering, but I did not get lost and enter this building by mistake. So, but in all seriousness, when I got the call from Paul about the nomination and the confirmation on the induction, I was just really excited. I had to call my father, who's here tonight with me to celebrate. My father represents the Polish side of my heritage, and my mother, who couldn't be here tonight, she wishes she could be, is Filipino. So a little bit about my Polish heritage. My great-grandparents moved over from Poland back in the late 1800s. A couple of the known places where they migrated from were Opola and Lajskowice, and they wound up in the Midwest, so they wound up in Illinois and Minnesota. And over the next few decades, they established in St. Paul. And so after establishing there, my great aunt Barb, she recalls a very tight-knit Polish community in the St. Paul area where she grew up alongside my grandmother, who's no longer here, no longer with us, but very tight-knit Polish community. She recalls dances at St. Adalbert's, which was the Catholic church that was built by the Polish community back in 1911. And she recalls dances there and just the humility and humbleness and hardworking Polish community that's definitely translated down into my father and to my two brothers and I. And of course, after talking with my family about our Polish heritage, the conversation naturally led to the cuisine, kielbasa, pierogis, pączkis, coffee cake, to name a few. When it came to being an athlete, I was pretty much destined to wind up on speed skates, or skates. My great-grandmother and my grandmother were speed skaters in their youth, which I didn't really learn about till later on in my career. But that was cool to learn about. And my father and his brother played hockey growing up in and around St. Paul. So I was destined to wind up on skates. And skating is really the sport that brought my family together. My parents would take us around the country to regional and national events, and it really connected us. We lived 2 miles down the rink from an inline skating rink, and my mom was working late nights, and my dad was like, I have 3 young boys, I need to get their energy out somehow. So took us to the skating rink, and that's how I got my start. I told my parents when I was 12 years old that I wanted to go and chase a dream of being in the Olympics and represent the United States. And they took that statement very seriously. They knew I was dedicated. They knew that I had the passion and the drive, and they moved mountains in order to make that dream become a reality. I was very lucky to have a supportive family that sacrificed a ton for my brothers and I to be able to do what we love to do. My father, who's here tonight, he's my hero. I've always looked up to him. He's always been my role model, and he gave me the greatest gift a father could ever give to his son, and that was the gift of time, spending time with me to instill values and lessons, and to show me the ropes and how to be a man. So I'm thankful that I had such a supportive family and system of support, especially after what you saw. The injury that I went through before Vancouver, it was kind of the hallmark memory in my career. To be able to come back from a life-threatening injury 5 months after and to win a couple medals at the Olympics. I never ever thought that would have been possible, and the only reason that was possible because of the people that were lifting me up. My wife, she also couldn't be here tonight, but beautiful wife. Her name's Andrea. She's actually the program director for the speed skating team, and she's going to be going to Beijing in February next year. So you'll see her over there, and hopefully her team does amazing. But I'm just so honored to be here. Thank you so much for everything that the Hall of Fame has done. I'm stuffed. The food is amazing. I wish I could eat like that all the time. So. Thank you again, and like I said, honored to be here, honored to be alongside so many great athletes and people of Polish heritage. So, na zdrowie. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My father's here too. So yeah, that's him. Yeah. Awesome. Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah.
You can stay here.
Okay.
So, as my professional obligations would necessitate, I have to ask a couple more questions. This is a natural thing. So, JR, if you could share with us, what are your favorite Olympic memories of just the experience of being an athlete, being in the Olympic Village?
That's a great question. I think my most fond memory was opening ceremonies, my first Olympics. I didn't think I was going to be there at all from the injury that you all saw. But I was in the back of the crowd, and we were the second to last country to come out before Canada. And we had, Canada and the U.S., of course, arch rivals when it comes to the Winter Olympics. So we had a yelling match back and forth in the hallways and the tunnels. USA, and they tried to rebuttal, but they were just like a little pipsqueak. So, but basically, we were walking out, and the experience of walking out into the opening ceremonies is just it's an experience in itself. But one of the producers found me and pulled me all the way to the front of the line, and was like, we want you to stand here. And I was just like, why? But I got to be in the front, and then like you saw in the video, like they did a little thing and story. So I think that was the most amazing thing. The medal was just like really just a cherry on top at the end. But just to be able to walk in and experience that, and my parents lived down in Federal Way, Washington, so that's only a 2-hour drive from Vancouver. So I had about 50 to 100 people like at any given time in and out of the weekend come to visit. So.
And you mentioned your parents, and it's great to see your father here tonight. At what point in time did you realize, as a boy growing up, that they were making a lot of sacrifices and a lot of moves just to help that dream become a reality for you?
Oh man, there's so many moments. I think the biggest one was my dad would take me up to Vancouver all the time when I first started getting on the ice, because I was an inline skater, and inline skating it's a little different than ice skating. So I needed the practice. I needed to get used to that surface. So he would take me up to Vancouver for weekend meets all the time, and it was just those weekends that I missed, with the rest of the family. That he was like, you need to get the experience, and this is the only way that we're going to get it for you. And then he also moved down to Southern California, so I was able to train. And he saw me through high school and got me on my feet. So it was just like those movements that they made, those moves around the country, and those sacrifices that they made for me to be able to get the exposure I needed. So.
Perfect, JR. One final question for you. You were sharing with me before that you had a lot of Polish-American roommates who were fellow speed skaters. Can you share with everyone that story and that Polish-American lineage among the U.S. speed skating club?
Of course. So when I first moved to Salt Lake, I moved out, and I was trying to find a place to live. I was like 18, and one of my friends had a room open in his spot. His name's Alex Izakowski, and he's actually from Bay City, medalist in the 06 Olympics. And he's like, hey, why don't you come on through, and you can stay here as long as you need. So I moved there, and shortly after I moved out, I got my own spot. There was a guy named Ian Baranski that took over my room. And after he left, sure enough, there was Tyler Dabrowski that took his spot. So it was the Polish house, and we were proud of that. Yeah.
Well, we are very proud of you. J.R. Selski, our newest Hall of Famer. Congratulations.
Congratulations again, JR. As we continue our program, I do want to share in my travels, obviously covering baseball around the country, whether it's going to different cities and watching television, or via my favorite app, which is the MLB At-Bat app, which allows you to watch games all around the country. I do love sampling each team's unique local broadcast. And I have found over the years that few broadcasts, if any, surpass in the quality of storytelling, the quality of broadcast, and the fun of the San Francisco Giants. And our next honoree represents half of that outstanding tandem because of insights that he gleaned throughout a career that saw him make the NL All-Star team in 1986, and 1 year later earn a complete game victory in the NLCS. As a broadcaster, he has won more than a dozen Emmy Awards. And more importantly, he has earned the acclaim and respect of his many friends and colleagues in the baseball family. Once again, here is Ken Cal.
California native Mike Krukow was born in Long Beach and attended San Gabriel High School, where he excelled as a catcher. A high school standout, Krukow was drafted as a catcher by the California Angels in the late rounds of the 1970 MLB draft. Electing not to sign with the Angels, Krukow chose instead to attend college at California Polytechnic State University, where he became a pitcher, establishing several Cal Poly records that stand to this day. In 1973, Krukow was drafted for the second time, this time as a pitcher, as the 8th-round selection of the Chicago Cubs. Krukow began his 14-year big league career with the Cubs in 1976 and was added to the Cubs starting rotation the following season. As a Cubs starter, Krukow accumulated 45 wins in 5 solid seasons on a team that struggled to achieve mediocrity each year.
Mike Krukow who, as I said, pitched a two-hitter today, jacked his first major league home run.
In 1982, Krukow was traded to the Philadelphia Phillies. In his only season with the Phillies, Krukow's 13 wins was second only to perennial Phillies ace Steve Carlton, making the 30-year-old Kruk the centerpiece in a trade with the San Francisco Giants that brought Joe Morgan, reliever Al Holland, and ultimately a 1983 NL championship to the Phillies. Mike Krukow was off to San Francisco. Krukow thrived in his new home in San Francisco, where he would spend most of the next 7 seasons anchoring the Giants' starting rotation, earning him the selection as the starting right-hander on the Giants' 1980s All-Decade team. A leader in the clubhouse and in the community, Krukow received the Willie Mack Award, named in honor of Giants Hall of Fame legend Willie McCovey in both 1985 and 1986 for his spirit and leadership. His best season on the field would come in 1986, when he posted a record of 20-9 with an ERA of 3.09. He earned NL All-Star honors that year and finished third in the NL Cy Young balloting. The following season, he would lead the Giants to their first division championship in 16 years.
Ball to second, could be 2. There's 1. The first double play. The game's over, and the Giants win it 4-2.
A torn rotator cuff and subsequent surgery would put an end to Kruk's 14-year playing career in 1989, a career that saw him finish with a 124-117 record with 1,478 strikeouts and a 3.90 ERA in 2,190 innings pitched. But Krukow's mark on the game he loved was far from over. Beginning as an occasional color analyst in 1990, Krukow became the Giants' full-time broadcaster in 1994, partnering with his former Giants teammate Dwayne Kuiper to form the highly popular Kruk and Kuip announcing team. Noted for his deep knowledge of the game and sharp sense of humor, the 14-time Emmy Award winner was one of 8 finalists for the 2017 Ford C. Frick Award for Baseball Broadcasting Excellence. He was named California's 2015 and 2017 Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association. 2021 marks Mike Krukow's 30th season in the broadcast booth. And tonight, for both his playing and broadcasting excellence, we honor him as the newest inductee into the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame.
Congratulations to Mike. He was unfortunately unable to join us. Of course, he's broadcasting the games of the team that is right now the best in Major League Baseball, and Mike was kind enough to send this video of acceptance.
Hi, this is Mike Krukow, and I want to thank the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame for the honor and the distinction of being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. And congratulations to A.J. Przinsky and J.R. Selsky and Branko Nagurski. I'm proud to be in our foursome. That's a foursome I'd like to play golf with right there. Branko Nagurski, my grandfather loved 2 athletes. He loved Branko Nagurski and he loved Ted Kluszewski. And in 1961, when I was 9 years old, there were 2 teams in Los Angeles, the Dodgers and the Angels. And the Angels played at Wrigley Field in Los Angeles, and they were an expansion team. And my grandfather was an Angels fan for one reason. They had picked up the aging slugger, Ted Kluszewski, from the Cincinnati Reds, and my grandfather loved him. And so in 1961, when I was 9 years old, we went to go see the LA Angels. And my grandfather wanted to get there early because he wanted to see Ted Kluszewski hit home runs. I mean, he was huge, big arms, and my grandfather loved him. So anyway, we got to batting practice, and he was putting on a show. It was so much fun. And I mean, from 9 years old, I was on board. I thought this guy's amazing. Then in the first inning, he comes up and he hits a home run. Well, that did it for me. I wanted to be a big league baseball player. And I wanted to be a big league baseball player because of Ted Kluszewski and because my grandfather loved Ted Kluszewski. And in 1973, I got drafted by the Chicago Cubs, and my professional baseball career started. And in 1974, when I was an A-ball, played for the Key West Conchs, I get a phone call from my grandfather, and he notified me that Ted Klaczewski had gone into the Polish Hall of Fame. That's the first time I ever heard of the Polish Hall of Fame. And I was pretty excited because my grandfather was excited, and my grandfather told me, someday you're going to be in the Polish Hall of Fame. So I never forgot that, and in 1976, I got to the big league, got called up in September, and I'll tell you a story about how my career started. We were in Wrigley Field. I got called up September 6th, my wife's birthday, and get to the ballpark, and I was floating on air. I mean, I was just so excited to be a big leaguer. And being a pitcher, when batting practice is done, you'd go out and you would run. You'd run sprints out in front of the bleacher bums in left field. You'd run down and you'd walk back. You'd run down, you'd walk back. You'd do about 20 sprints. That was your leg work. Anyway, about the fourth sprint, I run down. I'm walking back in front of the bleachers, and a guy leans out and he goes, "Hey, 40, what's your name, man?" And I tried to ignore him. I'm walking with Bruce Sutter, who got called up in May, and Bill Bonham, who was a 6-year veteran. And I was embarrassed. So anyway, I tried to ignore him. So I run back. Now I'm walking back, and I see the same guy. And he leans out of the bleachers, and he yells out, "Hey, 40, what's your name, man?" So I was clearly embarrassed. And Bill Bonham, the 6-year veteran, said, "Hey, don't worry about it, kid. If he tells you again, just tell him to go buy a program." I said, "Okay." So I walk back. I run back, and now I'm walking back, and sure enough, I see the guy. He's leaning out of the bleachers, and he's starting to get a little impatient. He yells out at me, "Hey, 40, what's your name, man?" I said, "Go buy a program, meat." He goes, "I did, and you ain't in it." And that's how my career started. In 1977, I made the team out of spring training, and Bob Verdi, a writer there, called me the Polish Prince, and it was probably the greatest thing he could have ever done for me. Being from Southern California, and really, the only time I ever heard anybody speak Polish was my grandfather. When we got to Chicago, being the Polish Prince, it opened up a whole new world for me because I was adopted from the very first day that I got in by the Polish community. And when 1979, when my son Jarek was born, every day, he was born June 25th, and every day after that on a home game, I'd come back and there'd be 5 or 6 presents waiting for me, and they were handmade booties, handmade blankets, handmade baby caps, pierogies, unbelievable food. I was just a part of the family, and it was an experience that my wife and I had never seen, and we felt like we were part of that community. And you know, the thing that players aspire to be when they have a career is remembered. When you start your career, you pick up a flag and you represent a lot of people. You know, your parents, your friends, your relatives, and your high school coaches, and all your guys you played ball with from Little League all the way through college. And you carry that flag for everybody. You know, they cheer for you silently, but they follow your career, and you feel the weight of that responsibility to try and play it right, and to try and carry yourself with dignity as a player. I mean, obviously you want to be as good as you could possibly be, but of all the things that you want out of the game, the one thing that you want the most is to be remembered. And this is what this means to me. It means that my career is worthy of being remembered. When I look at the Hall of Fame members in the Polish American National Hall of Fame, I look at names that were bigger than life to me. Guys who I rooted for as kids, guys who I played against, and guys that I played with. And for me to be remembered in that regard is a very, very special thing. And I want to say, for my family, for my wife Jennifer, my children, my grandchildren, for the San Francisco Giants, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Chicago Cubs, the teams that I got to play with, you have honored all of us by this selection, and I'm humbled by it. And I just wish my grandfather was here, and if he knew that I was going in with Bronco Nagurski, it would make him smile even more. And thank you.
Beautiful stories and reflections from the great Mike Krukow, and our honor to have Mike now as part of the Hall of Fame. Our final inductee tonight, seated to my left, and this is a special honor for me because he's a teammate of mine and a friend, not in my playing career, but as a broadcaster, and so I'm very, very blessed to be here next to him. In baseball, we do prize consistency, being there and doing your job every single day with pride, the pride that Mike was talking about a moment ago. And our next honoree fulfilled that obligation with brilliance and durability through nearly 2 decades in the major leagues. He ranks 9th all time with 1,936 games caught. His accountability never took a day off either. As a writer, I would often make sure to visit the White Sox clubhouse, even while covering the Tigers, for conversations with him, whether it was on or off the record, because I knew that those talks would reveal very important insights on the games that I was covering. More recently, he has become my trusted colleague and friend at Fox Sports. We have shared laughs and meals around the country for years, and yet even as we joke a lot, I reflect most on my friend's sincerity and thoughtfulness. He honors the game through his attentiveness to the smallest nuances that often make the difference between winning and losing. Most importantly, he is a great teammate and devoted family man. He is here tonight with his wife, Lisa, and he has an enduring respect for our nation's military as well. Here is Ken Cal with more.
Born in Bridgehampton, New York, A.J. Pierzynski was just 3 years old when his family moved south to Orlando, Florida. By age 4, A.J. was playing organized baseball on sunny Florida fields, where year-round practice and top-flight competition allowed him to groom his natural skills. He would go on to earn All-State honors at Orlando's Dr. Phillips High School, where he caught the eye of numerous pro scouts. Pierzynski passed up an opportunity to play college ball at the University of Tennessee when he opted to turn pro after being selected by the Minnesota Twins in the 3rd round of the 1994 MLB draft. He would spend the next 4 years developing his skills in the Twins minor league system. Still just 21 years of age in 1998, A.J. made his major league debut with the Twins that year as a September call-up and remained with the club as a reserve catcher for the next 4 seasons, finally earning the starter's role in 2001. Pierzynski responded to his full-time catching duties with strong numbers, hitting .289 in 2001 and .300 in 2002, while earning American League All-Star honors. In 2003, A.J. lived up to his growing reputation as one of the game's top catchers, hitting a career-high .312 while leading the Twins to their 2nd consecutive American League Division title. The Twins traded A.J. to the Giants for pitcher Joe Nathan for the 2004 season. Pierzynski then spent 1 year with the Giants, hitting 11 home runs with 77 runs batted in.
Back at you, and you knew it was coming. That's how you get back. It's Big League Baseball right there. That's home run number 7.
At the end of the season, he signed with the Chicago White Sox as a free agent. That year with the White Sox proved to be among A.J.'s finest. It included a career-high 18 home runs, a postseason performance that saw Pierzynski produce 3 home runs and 9 runs batted in 11 games, and a World Series sweep for the Houston Astros, as the White Sox captured their first World Series championship in 88 years. A.J. would go on to a total of 8 outstanding seasons with the White Sox, highlighted by a 2nd All-Star appearance in 2006 and a Silver Slugger Award in 2012, honoring him as the best-hitting catcher in the American League. Equally strong defensively, Pierzynski still holds the American League career record with 962 consecutive errorless chances by a catcher. In all, A.J. Pierzynski played a total of 19 years in the major leagues, a career marked by aggressive enthusiasm, defensive excellence, and outstanding offensive numbers, retiring in 2016 with a career batting average of .280 and is one of only 10 catchers ever with more than 2,000 major league hits. The National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame congratulates A.J. Pierzynski on his 2021 induction.
So this is the fun part of what I get to do. So I like to say, AJ, on behalf of the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame, we are thrilled that you are one of our most recent inductees. So
well, thank you.
Enjoy the evening.
Thank you very much. Thanks, JP.
My pleasure, AJ.
First, I want to say thank you to David, obviously, Paul Peruk, who everyone here knows. We talked on the phone 100 times over the last year and a half about this thing, so thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for making this come together. Thank you for all the committee that's here. Thank you for all the board members. Thank you to all the voters. It truly does mean a lot to me as a Polish American to be into this Hall of Fame. The class that I go in with, Bronko Nagurski, I know we're in Lions country, but bear down. Mike Kruko, who you guys saw, I played for the Giants for 1 year, and we had an up and down relationship, but we always said, once a Giant, always a Giant, so I'm proud to go in with him. JR, amazing story. The injury you came through, truly amazing. Getting to meet you last night and hang out with you and your father was awesome, so thank you. Joe, great stories. I'm sure you wrote something bad about me along the way, so when you were in Kansas City, so I forgive you. It's okay. And then finally, I want to thank JP. As he said, we've had a long, winding relationship through playing and him being there, bugging me after games, before games, wanting to talk baseball. And he'd always put a smile on my face. And for those of you that knew JP, know JP, he can talk. All right, I love him for it. We work together now on Fox Sports, and because of JP, it's why I'm here. He introduced me to this Hall of Fame. He always joked with me about playing for Poland in the Olympics, for the Polska baseball, and so because of him and his efforts, I'm here. So JP, I truly do thank you for this, and this is an opportunity I get to do, and I'm not going to take this lightly. It is something that I'm truly honored to do. My family, both sides, my mom and dad are both Polish. My grandparents came over, my great-grandparents, with nothing, much like Joe, came over after the wars, came over, some moved to St. Louis, they all ended up in Bridgehampton, New York, and they were modest potato farmers, had nothing, grew up, did their job, showed up every day, and the story I tell everybody is, being from Bridgehampton, which we all saw, there's also another famous baseball player from Bridgehampton, New York, Karl Jastrzębski, who's also in the National Polish Hall of Fame. He's also in another Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, one of the greatest players of all time. Well, my claim to fame is my grandmother, Sabina, lived from here to that wall from where Karl Jastrzębski grew up. My grandfather, who I'm named for, played minor league baseball, was a catcher. His bat boy on the town team, because they had town teams back then, was Karl Jastrzębski. So for me, as a Polish American, getting to come in here, be any class or any Hall of Fame that Karl Jastrzębski's in, to my family is very special. And I only wish they've all passed so they could be here to see this. So, excuse me. So now, after the thank yous, and there'll be some more coming later, but when I was thinking about what to say, because I talked to Paul, and what do I say when I get up here? And I'm watching a show on TV called Ted Lasso, and if you haven't seen Ted Lasso, first of all, I'm sorry, because it's the best show on TV. There is a character on there named Roy Kent. He's a soccer player. He retires, he becomes a coach. They're having a hard time with their best player, and I was never the best player on any team I was on, but he gives a talk to his best player, Jamie Tart, and Jamie Tart is having a hard time playing. And Jamie says to Roy Kent, why do I suck, basically? And Roy Kent, in his British accent with a few more curse words, says, you need to be a prick. And Jamie Tart's like, what do you mean? He's like, you need to be a prick. You're a prick. Be a prick. Be mean to the other team. Get the other team out of their game. And that's how you will succeed as a team. And you say, well, what does this have to do with me? Well, when I was in AA, I was in Akron, Ohio. I had a manager named John Russell. 2000, I'd been up and down in the major leagues, 98, 99. Back in 2000, back in AA. Career stalled, going nowhere. John Russell calls me into the dugout one day and says, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. He goes, you need to be a prick. Pretty much the same speech. And I'm thinking, what? He's like, you are so much better when you are talking trash to the other team, getting under their skin, acting like, excuse my language, basically acting like a jackass. And I'm like, okay. So that night, I was like, okay, let's do this. So I kind of committed full-time to it. If you've ever Googled me, you'll know why. So did that, committed to it, and went to AAA, went to the big leagues, made my debut, or came up in August that year, never looked back, played the next 17 full years, 16 full years, major leagues, had a great career. And, it takes a while to build a reputation. It takes a lot of hard work, especially to build a bad reputation. One of the quotes, and JP will tell you this, that Ozzie Guillen always said about me was, if I was on your team, or if I was on the other team, you hated me, and if I was on your team, you hated me a little less. Right? Now, I hate that quote because it's everywhere I go. We're showing highlights of me, and we always show the Michael Barrett fight, right? It's always there. So it's the two things people always want to ask me about. And the more I think about that quote, the more I'm okay with it. And you say, well, no one likes that quote, but that's how I had to be. And Roy Kent kind of summed it up for me. I had to be mean. I had to be a prick. I had to play with a hate. I had to manufacture that hate sometimes, meaning I would lie to myself and say, this guy on the mound, he hates me. I didn't know the guy, right? But I'm like, this guy, he doesn't want me to get a hit. He doesn't want me to have any success. He wants to take food off my family's table. He wants to take money out of my pocket. So I'd go out there and say, all right, I'm going to kick this guy's tail. And that was the only way I could play baseball. And because being nice clearly wasn't working for me. Now, let's also say this, my wife is here, so separated it from on the field and off the field. Off the field, a completely different animal. On the field, we're going to fight. And I was okay with it. That was the thing that I learned as I got older, and especially when I was kind of going at it full time, was I wanted people concentrating on me. I wanted that attention, and I was okay with it because it just gave me more reason to concentrate on what I was doing. And it wanted to prove these people wrong. JP, I don't think he wrote anything bad about me, but people wrote a lot of things, called me a lot of names from this to that, and over the years, yeah, it hurts, but I was like, okay, I can deal with that because I could take it. In the 2005, we showed the World Series we won, and I'm so thankful because Chicago hadn't won a World Series in 88 years, and we did it before the Cubs. So if you're a Cubs fan, oh well. But we won the World Series in 2005, 88 years, right? And during the season, we had a guy named Scott Pasednik, who was our leadoff guy. And Paul Konerko, who hopefully one day we'll be able to get into this Hall of Fame also, was kind of our captain. And in the middle of the year, Pasednik's like, hey, Paul, what's my role? He's a leadoff hitter. He's having a great year. And Paul's like, you're a flea. And Pod's like, what do you mean? He's like, be a flea. And Scotty Pod's like, what do you mean? He's like, your job is to pester the other team, get on base, steal bases, score runs, and just be a flea. Pod's like, okay, well, I heard this conversation. I walk up to Paul and I say, well, Paul, if he's a flea, what am I? And he goes, you're the guy we get the other team to throw at so they don't throw at me. And I'm like, perfect, Paul. Okay. It sounds, but I got thrown out a lot. If you've ever looked at my career, it's pretty amazing. But I was the designated get hit by pitch guy when the other team got mad at our team. They just throw at me. Okay. Again, I was okay with that. Why? Because I enjoyed this part of my career. As much as it stinks now that I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they can look on the internet and see all the quotes that are said about you that people like Joe wrote about me and JP have written about me over the years, it's okay. I wanted that because when I was on the field, I knew if they were focused on me. And like I said, I was never the best player on my team. I mean, I played with David Ortiz, I played with Torrey Hunter, I played with Barry Bonds, I played with some of the all-time greats of baseball. And if the other team was worried about what I was doing or how I was acting, then we were going to win. And at the end of the day, that was what I wanted. I wanted to win the game that we were involved in, and I took pride in going to work every day, much like my ancestry had done for all those years on the potato farms in Bridgehampton. They showed up, they went to work, and that's what I took pride in. I wanted to be there. And you're saying, well, what does this have to do with the Polish Hall of Fame? Well, we're all labeled something, right? And as Polish Americans, we've all heard all the things that are said, and we know the jokes and all that, and that's okay. But we need to be proud of our heritage, and especially our Polish heritage. I mean, you look at the names over here, and you look at the food that we were served tonight, and it's a great, great heritage. And I think we need to embrace that a little bit more, because I think at times the Polish people are kind of looked differently or looked down upon, and it's not fair, but that's the way it is. And so I think we need to embrace it a little bit more, and each of us has a story, right? So don't be afraid to share your own story. Don't be afraid to stand out. Don't wait for people to notice you. Do things to make people take notice, right? And I think as Polish Americans and people here, I think we can do that. And this is a great opportunity to start that for all of us. And again, I thank the Hall of Fame. I thank everyone here, and I thank the committee. But one more thank you, I have to thank my family. Sorry. My two kids are not here. They had games, so sorry. They wanted to be here, trust me. My daughter, we sent her a picture of the plaque, and she goes, "Do you get to keep it, Dad?" Because that's what 16-year-old girls care about, right? They both wanted to come. One had a volleyball game, one had a baseball game. So obviously, I'm sorry they're not here. But my wife is here, and we've been through a lot. Sorry. All the things that were said about me, all the articles that were written about me, she was always the first one there, no matter what. So for that, I'm truly thankful. We've been married over 20 years, so she was with me the whole ride, from the beginning to now. She was there when I debuted in 1998, and we had a conversation. We flew in. We were talking about staying in Dearborn when we were still dating and playing in Tiger Stadium. And, she was there through the ups and downs. There was a lot of ups, a lot of downs. And so for that, I'm truly thankful that she's still by my side. And like I said, she let me be me, and it wasn't always easy, trust me. But I'm very grateful for that. And thank you all for coming, and thank you for this tremendous honor. It really does mean a lot.
One more time. AJ Pierzynski, congratulations again, my friend. Congratulations. And so, once more, for old time's sake, a couple more questions I've got for you. You've been behind the plate. We talked about it, 2,000 games, basically, in the major leagues, and some memorable ones. What's it like when you're behind the plate during a perfect game, during a no-hitter? You've been part of the games of that type. What are some anecdotes from those key moments, calling the big pitch when it's the 8th inning, when it's the 9th inning?
Well, you're nervous. You're scared to death. The first no-hitter I called was Mark Burley in 2007, and he had walked Sammy Sosa early in the game. We had a 5-6 lead, so that one was a little different. He walked Sammy Sosa, picked him off, and we get to the 9th inning, and Burley, if you guys know anything about Mark Burley, he threw about 82 miles an hour on a good day. And so you're back there thinking, all right, what can I do? And it made it easier because we had already given up a walk, so it wasn't a perfect game. We had a big lead, so you could pitch around guys and try to get through it. Well, Mark ends up going 27 up, 27 down if you count the pickoff, gets a no-hitter, and it was like the coolest thing ever because it was the only moment in 2007 for the White Sox that was any good besides Jim Thome hitting his 500th homer. This was April 15th, and our season went right after that. It was we were terrible that year, but that was the one moment. I remember Burley after the game, we had lockers next to each other, and he was so happy, and everyone was so happy for Mark because he'd been such a great pitcher. And I was just like, whew, I did not screw it up. And then Phil Humber, I was fortunate enough to catch a perfect game with Phil Humber in Seattle, 2012. And the last out of I hate when they show it because I basically missed the ball and I have to go chase it and throw the guy out at first for the last out. And everyone's like, what if you would have thrown that away? And I'm like, I probably would never live that down. I'm probably still thinking about it, but you just don't want to mess it up, right? And the best story I ever tell, and JP can, you know, we do games together, and I've never been fortunate enough to call a no-hitter perfect game, but in 2010, when Burley threw his perfect game, I wasn't catching. I had the day off. And Mark Burley, again, he has locker right next to me for 7 years. And he comes in, and he's late, and it's a day game. And he's like, I'm going to be terrible today. And I say, Mark, just stop, dude. I'm tired. I'm not playing. I don't want to hear it. And he's like, no, I'm going to be terrible. I didn't get my Monster Energy drink, and I'm 5 minutes late. And I'm like, you'll be fine. Just stop complaining. Go out and throw a no-hitter. And he literally looks at me and goes, I've already done that. And I go, okay, go throw a perfect game. He goes, you know what? I'm going to throw a perfect game. The best part is you're not going to catch it. And I just laughed, not thinking anything. I'm like, yeah, right. Well, first inning rolls by, second inning rolls by. It gets to about the sixth. He's coming in. He won't let me come in the dugout because he doesn't, you know, he's superstitious, except for the fact every inning he runs in, dances in my face and says, I'm going to throw a perfect game. And he's dancing. He's, ha, 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 in my face, right? Gets to the eighth, and Dwayne Wise makes one of the best catches to preserve a perfect game ever. And he comes in, he goes, you know what's happening now. You know I'm throwing a perfect game. I'm like, listen, I understand, and I'm really happy for you, but I'm coming in the dugout. He's like, no, you're not. You're not allowed in the dugout just because. He ends up getting the 3 outs. I'm one of the first ones on the field because I was in the dugout, even though he said not. And he was so happy, right? And I was so happy for him. And it was one of the great non-superstitious stories you'll ever hear. Well, the first person, when Phil Humbert threw his perfect game, I got a text from was Mark Burley. He wasn't on the team that year. He'd been free agent with the Marlins. He said, I'm so happy you finally got your perfect game. So that's the kind of stuff that's like cool. And again, as a catcher, just don't mess it up.
I love those stories, AJ. Your conversations with umpires. We've talked before about there's one in particular who you've had a great rapport with over the years, and you can share the stories if you'd like. But just umpires in general, what are the conversations like during the game?
Well, there's no children here, right? No children. No, you know, umpires are a love-hate relationship. It's, as a catcher, you have to deal with a lot of umpires. And you deal with personalities, you have to deal with pitchers. Well, you always want to stand up for your pitcher. I stood up for mine a few too many times. And there were times where, you know, I got ejected. My son, who's 14, was at a game in Tampa, and we live in Orlando, and you know, my son comes to the game, I get ejected in the 8th inning, and he comes up to you after and goes, you know, Dad, why didn't you finish the game? Are you hurt? And you're like, oh, no, not exactly. He didn't know that you could get ejected at this time. But, you know, there's stories of, the two best stories for me, and I'm sure JP has heard this, is I got ejected in spring training, which is really impossible to do, but I did it. Joe West got me. He was being not good, and he was mad, and he wouldn't call a strike, so I asked him to call a strike, and he basically just told our manager in the middle of the inning he had to take me out. I wasn't playing nice in the sandbox. So he ejected me, and then we locked the gate on him so he couldn't get out of the field, and that didn't make Joe very happy. But then the one that everyone always asks me about is we were in Cleveland. I was with the Red Sox, and it was a bad game. We were playing terrible. It was a bad start to the game, and the guy pitching was walking everybody, and I asked he throws a ball 4, and I asked the umpire, I said, can I have a new ball? And he goes, well, it didn't hit the dirt. What do you need one? I said, I need one you can bleeping see. And he goes, what? And he put a ball in my hand, and I'm like this, and he grabs it, and he goes, you can't say that to me. And I go, say what? And he goes, you're out of here. And I go, for what? And he said, you asked me for a ball I could see. I said, that's not what I said. And he said, what'd you say? And I'm like, I need a ball you can bleeping see. And he used to say, you know, but that's the one that everyone always asks me about because it's kind of my famous quote from getting kicked out of an umpire is, I asked an umpire for a ball he could see.
Well, last one for you, AJ. On the pitchers that are the greats of your era, I know certainly a lot of memorable at-bats against Verlander here in Detroit. What about those encounters brings out the best in you, and how much did you enjoy having to face, as hard as it is to face those guys, but just the challenge of facing the greats?
Well, that's kind of a little bit what I talked about. Like I think you can ask my wife because I am the ultimate procrastinator. I love the pressure. I lived for those moments, and I played with a ton of people, obviously. But I could say there's people I played with that did not want to be up in those situations. They were like, oh, someone else will face those guys, right? But I lived oh, we're facing Pedro Martinez. Great, I'll hit 9 times if you want. You're facing, Mike Mussina, Verlander, Scherzer. I'll take 9. I'll hit 27 times, and I'll take every at bat. And that's kind of what I lived for. I wanted to be that. And listen, like I said, I wasn't the best player on any team I ever played on, but I love those situations. And I've failed a lot. I mean, I failed way more than I got a hit. Trust me. And you try to pass this on to my kids all the time. My wife will tell you that, my son strikes out and he's mad. And I'm like, listen, I struck out 2,000 times in my life, a lot with the bases loaded, a lot in the 9th inning. But can you come back the next day and do it again? And I love those situations. I live for those situations. And I think sometimes that's why my wife and I will get into an argument over me getting my chores done, is because I want to wait till the last possible second. So I have the pressure on me because I don't have those at-bats anymore. So I'm sorry. She doesn't work like that. She's a planner for months and months, which is okay. But I'm going to wait till the last minute, and it's because I like the pressure and I want to feel that, small little rush, not like stepping in the batter's box, but a small little rush of adrenaline and pressure of I have to get the job done.
Well, AJ and Lisa, our Hall of Fame is better because of both of you being in it. So congratulations, both of you.
JP,
Thank
one
you
more
so
thing.
much.
The other Hall of Fame, I think I'm going to be on the ballot, so I need 1 vote just from you. That's it.
All right, I will take a very, very thorough look, my friend, as I always do. Congratulations. You guys. You good?
Thank you and congratulations again to AJ, to JR, to Mike, to Bronco, and thanks to all of you for the honor of being able to share this night with all of you. I think what we heard from all of our inductees and honorees were some very powerful stories about the pride that we all have in being Polish American, and it's a pretty unique thing to be able to carry forward, and as AJ encouraged us to do, to share those stories and to be proud of our backgrounds, whatever they may be, and to be that authentic self that Sam Mikulik also spoke about earlier today. I thought it was just beautifully said. So thanks again to all of you, and it's wonderful to be able to say these words. We'll gather again. We'll see each other again here, hopefully in a year's time. All the best. Congratulations to everybody. Thank you so much.